But why did Nelson Mandela sell out the Freedom Charter? When Nelson Mandela returned from prison, he got separated with Winnie Mandela and went to stay in a house of the rich white men. He was looked after by the Oppenheimers. Nelson Mandela used to attend the club meetings of those white men who owned the South African economy at the time. He stayed in their complex. He stayed with them. He stayed in one of their houses. They had access to him 24 hours. And they told him that what he represents will not be achieved. And then that's when he turned against himself. Because the Nelson we are celebrating now is not the Nelson we celebrated before prison and during prison. It's a staged, managed Nelson Mandela who compromised the fundamental principles of the revolution, which are well captured in the Freedom Charter. The EFF subscribed to the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter has got a detailed explanation of how everything else is going to be achieved. The Freedom Charter is the Bible of the South African Revolution. Any deviation from that is a sellout position. So, unlike Nelson Mandela, we're doing what Nelson Mandela didn't do. We are happy he ushered in. We normally don't use those phrases like Mandela sold out. And we are being too harsh, man. He was too old. He was tired. So he had to give in on some of the things. So he left it to us. We have to take it up where Madiba left it. And that's why Madiba said the struggle is not over. Madiba knew that there is an element of economic freedom that must be ushered in to complete the revolution. Madiba knew that political freedom is incomplete without economic freedom. So I wouldn't sit here and say Nelson sold out. I will say Nelson took us to a particular extent and then left it there for us to take it over. And we are here now. We don't say to Oppenheimer, this will happen, this will not happen. No. We come to Oxford University and Oxford Union and tell you what we tell Africans and what we tell everybody everywhere.
Did Mandela betray the South African freedom struggle? That's a quite interesting topic, and it often pops up on the internet, and this topic needs to be discussed by the African youth and South Africans especially. Today, I'm actually going to give you my point of view. Of course, each and every one of us has his own point of view, which you can put on the comment section, but I'm actually going to give you mine. Yes, Mandela did betray the South African freedom struggle because Mandela failed to implement the Freedom Charter. So the Freedom Charter was about giving black people the land. Because white people, the white minority, owns 90% of the land in South Africa. That just doesn't make sense. So the Freedom Charter was emphasizing about the land. When you go to South Africa, despite the fact the government is mostly black, because of course today we are talking about the government of national unity, but back in the days, ANC has ruled the country for almost 30 years. That means ANC is the only political party in South Africa that must be held accountable for the situation of the South African black people. And we can easily say, because we can see ANC government has failed to address the issues of black people in South Africa. When you go to South Africa, despite the building or despite the roads you can see, but black people are still living in poverty, especially when you go to township. Even in countries like Ghana or Nigeria, you won't see this kind of poverty. They are living in township, and the kind of houses in which black people are living in South Africa, you won't find them in Africa. Everywhere you go in African countries, you won't find this kind of houses. That means the South African black government has failed to address the issues of their own people. And we can say at the end of the day, maybe Mandela failed. Mandela should have implemented the Freedom Charter. However, there's always a but. There's always a but. I'll tell you something. Politics is not what you watch on TV. Politics is not what you think it is. Politics is much complicated than this. Politics is not like a blank paper you take on which you can draw whatever you want, or you can choose the achievement you want to get. It doesn't work like this. Politics is much complicated than this. And the politics we watch from outside doesn't have anything to do with the real politics on the ground, especially once you are inside. Just to remind you, there was a fight between the Force of Liberation and the apartheid regime. And each parties involved in the conflict were fighting for interest. The Force of Liberation was looking forward to defeat the apartheid regime and to impose the Freedom Charter, including getting back the land. And the apartheid regime knew that if the Freedom Charter had to be implemented, they were going to lose everything. That means they were fighting very hard. They were struggling. They were hustling because they couldn't lose what they thought belonging to them. And at the same time, at a certain time of history, the apartheid regime had pressure coming from the international community. They couldn't handle the pressure anymore. And Mr. Mandela had certain pressure as well because on a daily basis, young people were getting killed on the ground, and that had to stop. So there was an interest for each stakeholder to join the negotiation table to end the war and to get to a peace agreement. So peace negotiation is a long process. And the first step is the ceasefire. The ceasefire is the step where guns must be silenced. We have to silence the gun before we start talking. Before we start having any kind of peace talks, we need to silence the gun first. So as we go through the process, Mr. Mandela had to talk to his people to silence the gun. Once you join the negotiation table, keep in mind, you definitely have to compromise something. You can't get 100% for your initial demands to be accepted. Never ever you get 100%. You can go through your book of history, just check every conflict that happened in the world, even World War I, World War II, whatever conflict it might be, most of them end up by negotiation. And when you join the negotiation table, you have to agree losing something to get a common ground, to get a peace agreement. And Mandela knew that there was no possibility to chase away white people. We were going through a rainbow nation. We had to live together. And in order to live together, we needed to compromise something. And we think he should have done better than this. Of course, I agree with you. But I strongly believe that freedom doesn't come overnight. You can't get everything back after 300 years of white domination. It's impossible. Freedom is a journey. Freedom is a process. And actually, we're still through the freedom process. We're still in the tunnel. But the black government in South Africa must make a plan to get out of the tunnel so that black people can live in dignity. Because when you take the elite, you put them at a certain social level, you separate the elite with the masses. This is not freedom. At the same time, we have the white minority owning 90% of the land, And we have a small black elite who is not complaining about the social life because they're living the good life. They have been separated with the masses. So the initial ideology is not the same. That means the masses must work the elite up. And Mandela had a long-term vision. Mandela just decided not to do like Mugabe. Of course, in Zimbabwe, they've got the land, but the economy is down. And I think Mandela was honest with himself. He knew tremendous effort white people made to put the South African economy at a certain level. And he knew even if we had to get our economy back on our hands, it must be through a process, through a journey, not overnight. I don't think I'm enough qualified or I've got enough knowledge to answer these questions. But like I said at the beginning, I'm actually going to give you my point of view. I gave my point of view, but it's an open debate. You guys can give your point of view on the comment section, or you can make more videos like this by giving your point of view and by saying what you think about the topic. My name is Alvin. Bye.